Hello, my name's Serena and I'm 30 years old. I made the mistake of marrying a man with more issues than you could ever imagine. You see, I had this notion that love could conquer all, that I could fix him and make him see his worth. Oh, how wrong I was. Love may be powerful, but it can't teach someone how to love themselves. My ex, let's call him Rob, had an unhealthy obsession with pleasing his parents. And I'm not talking about your typical desire for parental approval. No, it was an all-consuming obsession that dictated his every move. It was as if he believed that his worth as a person was entirely dependent on his parents' validation. Now, let's talk about his lovely parents, shall we? We'll call them Mr. and Mrs. Smith for the sake of anonymity. They were the epitome of neglectful parenting. They rarely showed any genuine interest in their son's well-being, leaving him constantly starved for their attention and approval. It was a heartbreaking sight to witness, but I soon realized that I couldn't fill the void that his parents had left behind. To make matters worse, Rob had a nasty habit of squandering our hard-earned savings at his parents' whims. Can you believe it? I'm talking about extravagant gifts, lavish vacations, and all sorts of unnecessary expenses. It was like money was pouring through our fingers straight into the pockets of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Naturally, this financial irresponsibility became a major point of contention between us. We would argue endlessly about his reckless spending and his inability to prioritize our future. It felt as though I was constantly battling against his parents' influence, and it took a toll on our marriage. But here's the thing, despite the chaos and the endless arguments, I never stopped caring for Rob. I wanted him to break free from the shackles of his parents' expectations and find happiness within himself. However, it became clear that my love alone couldn't save him from the clutches of their toxic influence. Oh, hold tight, folks, because things are about to get even more intense in this roller coaster of a tale. So, one day, Rob approaches me with an air of seriousness, claiming that he has something important to tell me. Now, I'm no stranger to his antics, but little did I know that this conversation would lead to our worst fight yet. Serena, I need to talk to you about something important. All right, what is it? You know my parents are retiring, right? Well, I want to surprise them with a luxury trip. It's going to be quite expensive. That's fine as long as you're using your own money. I can't bear another argument about our savings. I can't afford it on my own. I need to use our savings for this trip. Rob, if you can't afford it, then maybe it's not a good idea to spend so much. Then he snapped at me. You don't understand, Serena. I love my parents and I do anything for them, even go above and beyond. Love shouldn't be measured by lavish expenditures. It's about being there for each other, supporting one another. But this trip is important to them. I want to make them happy. And I want us to be financially stable. Using all our savings for a trip is not responsible. You don't get it. This is something I feel compelled to do. I want to give my parents the world. Rob, we can show love and support without sacrificing our financial security. We need to find a reasonable solution. But I thought you'd understand. They mean the world to me. And you mean the world to me too, but we can't ignore practicality. We need to find a balance. You're just being selfish. I can't believe you won't support me in this. It's not about being selfish, Rob. It's about being responsible and planning for our future. How much will this cost anyways? I need all of it. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man had the audacity to ask me if I was willing to use all of our savings? He must have lost it. All of our life savings, Rob? Are you sick? Wow, Serena, I didn't think you'd be this heartless. You think money grows on trees? What makes you think that you can say crap like that and be so nonchalant about it? Well, I was planning on getting the money back. Oh, you were going to get $70,000 back. Okay, then that works then. No problem. Really? No, Rob, not really. I was being sarcastic. It's too much, and I won't allow it. Stop treating me like I'm a child. Then stop acting like one. I thought you were the person who would understand and stand by me. I do stand by you, but not at the expense of our financial stability. We need to think this through. The argument had escalated to a point where not only our voices were raised, but also a few things decided to go airborne and smash into a million pieces. Good times, right? And then, out of the blue, Rob drops the bomb. If you can't support me on this, then I want a divorce. Oh boy, he thought I'd start begging him to stay, fighting tooth and nail for our crumbling marriage. But guess what? I didn't take the bait. Nope, not this time. Instead, I summoned all the calm and poise I could muster and shot back. Okay, Rob, if that's what you really want. The shock on his face was priceless. He expected tears and desperate pleas, but instead, he got me standing my ground. I was done coddling and enabling this man. If he wanted to squander his resources, then he was more than welcome to. I didn't hold back. Oh no. I laid it all out on the table. I told him it was time for him to realize that his attempts to win his parents' approval were about as effective as using an umbrella in a hurricane. Pointless, my friend. He tried to argue, but I shut him down with a simple gesture, raising my hand as if to say, "Hold up, buddy." I told him I was tired. Tired of fighting for a love that was based on unrealistic expectations and the constant need for validation. It was time for me to take a stand. You want to spend your money impressing people who couldn't care less. Knock yourself out, buddy. But as for me, I'm done living in this cycle of disappointment and broken promises. Boom. The truth hit him like a ton of bricks. The reality of our situation sunk in, and it wasn't pretty. Our marriage had become a battleground, and it was time to wave the white flag and find our own separate paths. It had been a month since the papers were signed, sealed, and delivered, marking the official end of my turbulent marriage to Rob. And let me tell you, the sense of freedom and relief is absolutely intoxicating. No more sniveling, no more constant battles over money and his parents' approval. I can finally breathe without the weight of his insecurities dragging me down. Life was looking brighter by the day, my friends. Now, I won't lie. Rob did try to worm his way back into my life. He reached out, acting all concerned, asking how I was doing. But I saw right through his little charade. I wasn't about to fall for his tricks again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, well, you know how the saying goes. I ignored his attempts at rekindling any kind of connection. I had learned my lesson. I had spent far too long trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. It was time to focus on myself, my growth, and my happiness. Getting back on my feet wasn't easy. I won't sugarcoat it. Dividing our assets and adjusting to a new financial situation took some time and effort. I had grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle, but hey, I'm no stranger to hard work. I rolled up my sleeves and embraced the challenge of rebuilding my life as a single woman. I discovered newfound strength and independence within myself. I started reconnecting with old friends, pursuing hobbies that had long been neglected, and exploring new passions. The world was my oyster, and I was determined to savor every moment of this newfound freedom. Sure, there were moments of doubt and loneliness, and still adjusting to this new financial situation was certainly challenging. The scars of a failed marriage don't vanish overnight. But with each passing day, I found solace in knowing that I was no longer compromising my own happiness for the sake of someone else's insecurities. My ability to move on so quickly was probably an indication that I'd been beating a dead horse for a while now. I was so surprised at how much I could accomplish without that dead weight on my shoulders. So there I was, another month later, still adjusting but thriving nonetheless. And Rob was still bombarding me with messages. Except this time it was a bit different. He'd gone the full-blown cry me a river route, claiming he was in danger and desperately needed to meet with me. I was getting tired of him contacting me, and I wanted to put this issue to rest once and for all. So I called in the middle of one of his text rants and said, "Rob, I told you, I don't want to hear it. We're divorced, remember? It's time for us, you, to move on. Serena, please, just give me a chance to explain. I'm in serious trouble and I didn't know who else to call. I need your help." Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't heard his voice in so long, or perhaps he genuinely sounded terrified, but I relented. "Fine, but I'm not inviting you into my home. Let's meet at the cafe we used to go to. I don't want any funny business." "Thank you, Serena. I promise. I just need a listening ear. I'm desperate, and you're the only one who truly knows me." I know, my friends. You're probably thinking, "Serena, what on earth possessed you to meet up with Rob after all you've been through?" Believe me, I ask myself the same question, but sometimes even the strongest of us have moments of weakness, and I let curiosity and the lingering flicker of care get the best of me. Who was I kidding? I couldn't resist his desperate plea for help. Just because we were divorced didn't mean that I didn't care about him. So there we were, sitting across from each other in that cozy little cafe. The air was filled with intoxicating scent of freshly brewed coffee, but even that couldn't mask the palpable tension in the room. It was like stepping into a war zone of emotions. I couldn't help but observe Rob's face as he sat there, anxiety riddling with his features. It was almost comical how he tried to convey his distress through those puppy dog eyes, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I leaned back in my chair, trying to exude a sense of control. I was determined to keep this conversation on my terms. "All right, Rob, you've got my attention. What's this danger you've managed to stumble into? And let me be clear, I'm not interested in being your savior anymore. I've had my fair share of cleaning up your messes." Rob let out a heavy sigh, his face a blend of regret and desperation. It was almost pitiful to witness, but I reminded myself not to be swayed by his theatrics. "I know I've messed up in the past, Serena, but this time it's different. I've gotten myself tangled up with some really dangerous people. I owe them a substantial amount of money, and they're not exactly the forgiving type." I raised an eyebrow, not fully buying into his tale of woe. "Dangerous people? Really, Rob? Are we talking about those imaginary friends of yours again? You always had a knack for attracting trouble, didn't you?" Rob's eyes widened. A mixture of hurt and frustration flashed across his face. It was clear that he expected a different response from me, but after everything we had been through, I had grown tired of being the one who constantly tried to fix him. "No, Serena, I'm not making this up. You think I wanted this? Me coming to you with my tail between my legs asking for help? Okay, let me guess. You took the divorce hard and you needed money." "Not necessarily. Remember the trip I told you about?" "Oh God, don't tell me you borrowed money to fund a trip." People around the cafe looked at me as I raised my voice. I sent over an apologetic stare, trying to compose myself. "Look, Serena, I got involved in something I shouldn't have. I know that now, and now I'm paying the price. I need your help to figure a way out of this mess." My frustration started to bubble up, ready to boil over. How could he come back into my life with yet another disaster of his own making? But beneath my anger, a sliver of compassion lingered, reminding me that he was still human, even if he was deeply flawed. "How much do you owe?" "50. $50,000? Rob, are you crazy?" The cafe threw daggers at me, but this time I didn't bother apologizing. If they heard what I was hearing, they'd shout too. Serena, please, I'm desperate and I've nowhere else to turn. I know I messed up, but I still care about you. You were the one who truly believed in me. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, a glimmer of the man I once fell in love with, but it was too little, too late. I had to protect myself, even if it meant turning my back on him. Oh, don't do that, Rob. Don't try and reel me in. It's too late for that now. I thought you were going to say something like $5,000. Hell, I might have even been gracious and allowed 10 grand. But 50? $50,000? You must have lost your mind. Rob began to sob, crying loudly and not caring about the other patrons. He was making a fool of himself. Rob, this is not the time or the place. Logistically, what's going to happen if you don't pay them back? They'll break my legs, Serena. Jesus, that sounds serious. This isn't funny, Serena. I'm in serious trouble. I know, Rob, I know. Why don't you explain everything from the beginning this time? Rob poured out his tale of woe, confessing how he had obtained the money to fund his parents' extravagant trip. He explained that a friend had promised to lend him the funds, but that friend had let him down, leaving him trapped in this huge-ass debt. As he revealed the details, a mix of frustration and amusement filled me. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh, recognizing the twisted web Rob had woven for himself. So, let me get this straight. You took money from these dangerous people to please your parents, who haven't even bothered to thank you or show any appreciation for the lavish trip you funded? Is that what you're telling me? Rob's expression grew sullen, tears streaming down his face, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. He shook his head, his voice laden with regret. It's true, Serena. My parents haven't even reached out to me since they embarked on their grand adventure. It's like I'm invisible to them. I couldn't help but feel bad for the guy. What a predicament, am I right? It was almost poetic justice witnessing Rob come face to face with the reality of his choices. But I couldn't gloat, not with this man silently sobbing in front of me. I know you don't want to hear this right now, but you did this to yourself, Rob. I told you that it wasn't wise. And what's worse, you divorced me over it. And now here you are, not knowing what to do. You chased their approval, poured your life savings into fulfilling their desires, and they haven't even bothered to acknowledge your sacrifice. As much as it hurts, this is a hard lesson you needed to learn. It was a bitter pill for both of us to swallow. Rob had placed his self-worth in the hands of those who were incapable of appreciating his efforts. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I couldn't save him from his missteps any longer. I was hoping that now, with his legs in danger, he would understand that I was always on his side, and that his reducing himself to just a puppet that pleased his parents led to his downfall in the end. As the reality of the situation settled upon us, silence enveloped the cafe. The weight of our shared history, of all the broken promises and shattered dreams, hung heavy in the air. At that moment, I knew it was time to walk away for good. No more second chances, no more futile attempts to mend what was irreparably broken. Rob had to face the consequences of his actions, and I had to find my own path towards happiness. I hope you find a way out of this mess, Rob. What? You're not going to help me? What the heck? No, Rob, I'm not going to help you. Why not? I don't have the funds for it. Can't you get a loan? A loan that I'd have to spend the rest of my life paying back? No, thanks. I'm not as reckless as you are. Come on, Serena, please, I'm begging you. Huh? With the way that you're acting, it's almost as if you expected me to help you. Yeah, I did. You're my ex-wife, not my mortal enemy. And you see, that's the problem right there. You think that I'm always going to be here. And that's because I always was. I was your wife. Rob, of course I was going to dig you out of your messes, but I can't keep doing that. It's not my job or responsibility. I don't owe you anything. And honestly, after all the crap you put me through, squandering our expenses for your ungrateful and toxic parents, it's because I love them, Serena, you know that. And I love myself. And so I have to do what's best for myself. And that includes protecting myself, Rob. He hung his head, finally admitting defeat and realizing that if he was going to get help, it wasn't going to come from me. Because it's free, I'm going to give you some advice. Leave the country. Pack up your life and move somewhere where they can't find you. And if you can't do that, then I don't know how else to help you. Rob just sat in silence, almost pouting like he was irritated at my refusal to help him. It's time for us to part ways. I can't keep getting caught in the storm of your life. We both deserve a chance at finding our peace. I wish you well, Rob. I mean it. If you wish me well, you'd help me out. Goodbye, Rob. I'm getting a new number. With those words, I rose from my seat, leaving Rob sitting there, his face a mosaic of emotions. It was a painful yet necessary step towards reclaiming my happiness, my sense of self. Hello, I'm Denise, a 31-year-old woman who just got divorced. I never thought that I'd ever be divorced because I thought I was in the happiest relationship of my life. But when I looked closer into it, I realized that my marriage was very far from perfect. A lot of things contributed to it, so let me start from the beginning. I met Peter through a mutual friend. We hit it off pretty well from the start. Peter was a very attractive man with a very attractive personality. We began seeing each other and then dated for a good 4 years before deciding to get married. Everything in our relationship was pretty smooth sailing. Peter and I shared a lot of the same values, and in general, both of us were very accommodating of each other. The only issue we had was Peter's parents, Orla and Dave. They were nothing short of evil. The first time I met Orla and Dave, neither of them even glanced my way. When I got to the dining table, there were only 3 plates set out for the 3 of them. I was confused and very humiliated. Peter didn't speak up for me. He just kept his head down and looked away. I had to bring up the fact that I didn't have my own plate, and Orla acted dumb before saying that she had forgotten that I was there. Dinner after that wasn't any easier either. Orla and Dave pretty much ganged up on me and humiliated me. Peter was silent the entire time. Looking back, I guess that should have been an indicator of what my marriage to him would have looked like. I sat through every comment, and I was more than ready to go back home. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to yell at Peter for not even having my back and warning me about his parents, or at least speaking up for me, or if I just wanted to curl up in bed and cry. The drive back home had been silent. When we got back home, I gave Peter time to apologize, but he never really approached me about it. He continued about his night as if his parents hadn't just spent the night humiliating me. So I decided to talk to him about it. We need to talk. I was actually just going to sleep. Stop running away from things like a coward, Pete. Who are you calling a coward? You. Who else? I mean, you definitely don't have a spine of your own. You just let your parents crap on me, and you didn't say anything all night. Well, what do you expect me to say? Did you really expect me to disrespect my parents in their own home, which they had graciously opened for us? Don't try and guilt me into suppressing my emotions. You know how your parents are. Couldn't you have warned me? And I'm not even asking you to disrespect your parents. You could have just asked them not to talk to me that way. My parents aren't anything like yours. They're different, and they would have taken me speaking up as disrespect. Are you seriously still defending your parents?
Obviously, they're my parents.
Do you even feel bad for what happened to me?
Can we not do this?
Seriously?
I'm going to go to sleep. Good night.
Peter left me standing there. I was hurt and upset. I couldn't believe that Peter didn't even feel bad for me. I hoped that Peter was just feeling embarrassed, which was why he was reacting this way. I went to bed feeling pretty empty. When morning came, Peter acted like everything was fine. It peeved me at first. I didn't speak to him for about a week. I was mad. I didn't want to let go of my anger until he apologized. But that apology never came. I knew that it wasn't a hill I was willing to die on. I didn't want to let go of my relationship with Peter over that, so I started talking to him again. I tried my best to put his parents' behavior and his negligence behind me. It became an unsaid thing, but after our first visit to Orla and Dave's, we never went back or even made an effort to meet them. The next time we saw them was at our wedding. At our wedding, I pretty much avoided Orla and Dave like the plague. I tried my best to have as little contact with them as possible, but eventually I had to talk to them. They walked up to us at our reception to congratulate Peter and me on our marriage. There's my handsome son and his wife.
Congrats, son.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks. So what plans do you have for your honeymoon then? We were thinking of going to Hawaii.
Why not some place abroad?
Oh, we don't have the budget for that.
Nonsense. We'll fund it.
Seriously?
Yeah, but we have one condition.
We'll join you guys and make it a vacation instead. Of course, that would be amazing. What place do you have in mind?
We were thinking of Paris.
That would be great. Denise has always wanted to go, isn't it? Yeah, excuse me, I need to go to the washroom. I was not happy with this. I wanted time alone with Peter. I mean, isn't that what a honeymoon is all about? Hawaii wasn't Paris, but it's still a beautiful place, and it was a place that I've always wanted to visit too. I didn't like that Peter just decided without even stepping away to ask me. I tried my best to let go of my feelings and enjoy the night, but I really wasn't feeling the mood anymore. I rode out the rest of the reception and rode back home with Peter quietly. I was drained of all my energy and had no energy to talk to him about why I was upset. I slept over it, and the next morning I still felt crappy about it, so I told Peter about it. I need to talk to you about something that's been bothering me.
What is it?
It's about the honeymoon plans. I felt like you decided without considering how I felt.
Come on, my parents' offer is fantastic. You have to admit it, Paris is a dream destination and you always wanted to go, right?
It's not about the location. It's about the fact that we didn't even discuss it. A honeymoon is a special time for us alone.
Well, we'll have alone time eventually. Right now, it's a great opportunity and we can't pass it up.
Okay. But you know how your parents treat me. Is this really a smart decision?
Look, my parents are trying to be nice. Stop overthinking things and ruining this for us.
I just wanted us to have a say in our honeymoon. Is that too much to ask?
You either come or you don't. Don't think of all the negative aspects. Look at it as a chance to explore a new place with me. I don't want to hear any more of this.
I have to admit that it hurt to hear Peter talk to me that way. Would he really be okay with me not coming along with him on this honeymoon turned vacation? I decided to just suck it up and go. The vacation was set to happen a month after our wedding.
When the day came, we met with Orla and Dave at the airport. They greeted me with so much friendliness that I was caught off guard. They were unusually nice and caring. Since I was thrown so off guard, I guess I kind of closed myself off. They were nice for the first week in France. We still had another 3 to go. I was beginning to get used to their sudden change of behavior. But then they slowly started going back to their old ways. It started off with them making fun of what I was wearing. Orla would ask me if I thought that what I was wearing was smart. And some days they would make plans to go to these fancy places where they would deliberately exclude me from going in with them because they thought my clothes were embarrassing. Keep in mind, I was dressed more than decently and even got complimented for it by the few French people we interacted with. Then they started leaving me out of things for no reason. They would take Peter with them and go off with him for a good portion of the day and not tell me about a thing. I think I spent a good portion of my time at the hotel itself. Then came the comments about my weight and what I ate. If I ordered anything other than salad, Orla would make jabs at me. All the while she was stuffing her face with steak. Throughout the entire thing, Peter would never say anything. Sometimes I'd even catch him holding himself back from laughing. I was honestly more than ready to go back home. I counted down the days till it was time to leave. I couldn't keep hanging out with Peter and his parents. His parents bullied me relentlessly while Peter just ignored everything. I knew that I was going to have to talk to Peter about this later too, because every time I tried to talk to him, he never seemed to understand or want to hear about it. On our last day there, I decided to get Peter and my passports and tickets all organized together. Peter handed me his tickets, but when I asked him about my tickets, he said he didn't have them. It was odd that Orla and Dave hadn't handed me my ticket, but I was so absorbed with surviving this vacation that the weirdness of the situation never really got to me. Anyway, I went up to Orla and Dave's room and knocked on the door. Orla opened the door. "Hey, Orla, we'll be leaving tomorrow, right?" "Oh, yeah, Peter, Dave, and I will be leaving in 4 hours." "What? What about me?" "We forgot to buy your ticket. Whoops." "Whoops? Is that all you have to say? How could you possibly have forgotten to book my tickets?" "Calm down, Denise. We'll buy you your own tickets. It's okay." "No, it's not okay. They can't keep pushing me to the side and you can't keep supporting them." "Peter, she can't buy the same tickets as us." "What do you mean?" "All tickets on our flights are sold out." "Great. What are you going to say about this, Peter?" "I'm sorry." "No, sorry won't work. What's your solution?" "First of all, stop hounding my son. Talk to him with respect. Secondly, figure out your own solution. He's not responsible for your issues." "Peter, would you stay back at least?" "But I want to go to Turkey." "He's coming with us. Figure out your problem yourself." I was beyond shocked by this news. As Peter and I left their room, I tried asking him over and over again to not leave me alone. But he just looked away from me in embarrassment. He told me that his parents had paid for this trip from their retirement fund for him, and he wasn't going to disrespect them like that. I didn't say it at that time because I was so appalled. But all I could think about was, what about how your parents are disrespecting your wife? I watched Peter pack his bags through tears. He barely looked at me or even apologized. He never even offered to pay for my ticket back. I had half a mind to cause a scene, but at the same time I was humiliated enough. When it came time to leave, Peter walked away with his head down, while Orla and Dave gleefully waved me goodbye. I was mad. I was fuming. I didn't know what to do. I was stuck in an entirely foreign country all alone. Peter didn't stay back with me either. I was mad at all of them. I tolerated their behavior and all their quips for the entire month. I tolerated Peter not saying anything. I was done. I needed to get revenge, and I knew just how to. You see, as soon as Peter was financially stable, his parents retired. They had taken an assumable mortgage to transfer to Peter when he was stable. They transferred the mortgage to him once they retired. Now, Peter didn't have that kind of money to spare. It's why he still lived in an apartment. He was drowning in debt and the house was on the brink of foreclosure. So he nominated me to be the next owner. I earned more than him and had excellent credit. I contacted my best friend, Pearl, to tell her of my situation. Her husband, Terry, was a lawyer who specialized in property issues. I got on a conference FaceTime call with them and worked out a proof of how I had been the one paying off the mortgage ever since Peter nominated me. As soon as Peter transferred the mortgage to me, he stopped paying or even contributing. I was okay with it at first because I figured that this was the first time in a long while that he had money to spare at the end of the month. He blew all of his money on a lot of useless things. I didn't say anything until I realized 6 months had gone by and not once had he contributed towards his parents' mortgage. When I did say something about it, he lost his temper with me. He berated me for being jealous that he was living the life I had lived earlier before I took on mortgage payments. In hindsight, I should have realized that that probably should have been something that rang alarms about how he would be as a husband. Anyways, talking to Pearl's husband, Terry, helped open my eyes to all the things in my relationship with Peter that were questionable and even borderline insane. My God, Denise, how did you not realize how horrible Peter was before you even got married? I don't know. I actually don't know. I guess I loved him and didn't think he could do anything wrong. Okay, but he literally used you to pay off his home. You have to admit that that's a little insane. I know, but what do I do now? We can very easily transfer the house in your name. Can we? Yeah. You've been paying it off for over a year. You just have to contact the bank and get his name removed. You know what? I'll do it. And I'll have you an eviction notice drawn up so you can throw them out. How long will it take? Oh, you don't have to worry about it. Terry's got his contacts. He'll handle everything before you're back. You guys are seriously the best. Thanks a lot. You just have to promise us you'll be alert next time and that you won't let anyone use you like this. Oh, I promise, but I think it'll be a while before I trust someone new again. I knew that Peter and his parents had a 36-hour layover in Turkey. They planned their trip that way because they wanted to stay at the hotel at the airport in Istanbul. I was excited initially to be a part of it, but now I'm grateful I'm not. It gave me extra time to be home before them and serve them with an eviction notice. I booked my flight home and was lucky enough to get a flight in a couple of hours. The entire flight back home, I was a crying mess. I couldn't believe that this was what my life had come to. I had loved Peter with everything I had in me. I hated that I had overlooked every flaw in Peter, and this was how he repaid me. Not once did he call to check up on me. The only thing that consoled me was the satisfaction of throwing all of them out of their own house. For a brief moment, I wondered what they would do. The three of them would have to squeeze into Peter and I's apartment, but our lease was going to be up by next month. I knew they didn't have that kind of money to rent another apartment immediately after this trip. But then I remembered that they had been the ones to abandon me without even thinking about whether I would have been able to come back home. If they could do that to me, I could do it to them without feeling an ounce of guilt. As soon as I landed back home, I checked on Peter and his parents' flight status. They were going to leave in about 2 hours. I didn't care that I didn't get much sleep. I was running on the adrenaline of getting revenge. The first thing I did after getting out of the airport was drive straight to Orla and Dave's house. They kept a spare key under the mat, so I used it to get in and Gresham up. Then I got my laptop out and found the best divorce lawyer in my vicinity. I filed for a divorce and contacted Pearl to tell her that I had reached out. She and Terry came over so I could sign some paperwork to remove Peter's name from ownership and to sign the eviction notice. Seeing them brought over all the emotions I had been trying to suppress since I landed. I hated coming back to the place where there were only reminders of Peter everywhere. But Pearl and Terry were my friends, and we'd been through thick and thin together. They let me cry out my feelings for a while. When they left, I checked on Peter's flight and saw that it would take them another hour to get on the plane. I decided to take some time to sleep. I needed to not look like I was a mess or struggling. I struggled, but eventually I fell asleep. When I woke up, I realized that I had slept for about 10 hours. I quickly got dressed and ready. I went to the divorce attorney's office and collected the divorce papers. When I got back, I had to wait about an hour before Peter and his parents came back. My heart pounded as the time drew nearer to their return, but I knew I had to stay strong. When they got back, they were surprised to see me there in their house. What are you doing here? When did you even get back? Babe, I was trying to call. Save it. You didn't try anything. To answer your questions, Orla and Dave, I got back yesterday and I came here for a reason. Make it quick. We're all tired from traveling and we want to get some rest. Well, I want you guys out of my house. Your house? What are you even talking about? Stop wasting our time. Get out. Oh no, you guys need to get out. Don't you dare talk to my parents that way. I won't as long as they get off my property. This isn't your property, Denise. It is now, since I've been paying the mortgage off for the past year. What? Peter, what is she saying? We thought you were the one who was paying it off. For God's sake, we gave you the house because you said you could handle the payments. Well, he couldn't. He nominated me as an owner, and I had it off. I threw him off the owner's list because he hadn't paid a cent towards it, and now the house is mine. So get out. The three of them stared at me in shock and disbelief. They tried to plead their case and begged me to let them stay with me, but I told them that I had had enough of their bullying. I told them to get out or I would get the police involved. Right before they left, I handed Peter the divorce papers. I told him I didn't want to be with someone who would gladly use me for his gain and not ever stand up for me when I most needed it. Peter tried to apologize and begged me not to leave him, but the hurt was too much to continue to stay with him. I watched them leave and my heart was full of satisfaction. It would be a while before the hurt and betrayal completely cleared out, but at least I had taken control of my situation. I didn't let either Peter's or his parents' actions get to me or define me, and in my books, that's the biggest win of them all. It's been a couple of months since all of this has happened. Peter tried to contest the divorce, but he quickly realized how expensive it was going to be for him, so he backed off. The last time I heard about their situation, I found out that they had stayed with a bunch of relatives before they could afford an affordable place. Orla and Dave went right back to work so they could support themselves. It sucked that they were struggling, but this is the lesson they learned from messing with the person that was helping them. I've been happier ever since I threw them out of my life. Yeah, sometimes memories of everything they did to me come back, but I always let the satisfaction of my revenge comfort me. Hello guys, my name's Sylvia, and this is my very own mother-in-law story. Ever since I started dating Matt, my now husband, I knew that I would end up writing here. Why? Well, his mother Betty has been a witch to me from the very beginning. God, this woman is absolutely horrible. I don't know how I managed to tolerate her for so long. She is a big pain in the ass and doesn't even want to change herself. It all started when we met. Betty is an extremely judgmental and ignorant person who thinks she is better than everyone. In reality, she has a low-paying job and relies on her son Matt for financial help. When I met Betty, she seemed to be very unimpressed with me. That was okay since she didn't even know me yet, but it slowly became clear that her opinion wouldn't change at all. She said, "So, my son tells me that you work from home? I don't know what kind of job allows work from home anymore. I bet it doesn't pay above minimum wage." No, Betty, it does pay pretty well. I managed to earn $80,000 a year. I think it's pretty good enough. I don't need to be at the office for this work. Wow, they pay that much to lie around the house and be lazy. I didn't know that. I guess people nowadays don't have proper work ethics to go to the office. Not everyone can be hardworking like me. Her words and her tone were dripping with judgment. I realized soon enough that she thinks I'm beneath her and her son. Surprisingly, she never said that I didn't deserve her son. She simply kept putting me down while showing me that she was a rich and cultured woman. It was strange and annoying, but it got even stranger. She said, "What about your parents, Sylvia? Do they live around here? I never heard your surname in these parts before. It's very strange since I know everyone here." "They're not from around here. They live in a different country altogether. I moved here for college when I was 18. I have been here since then." "Oh my God, so now you're telling me that you are an immigrant. I didn't know that, Sylvia. I hear that life is very difficult in third world countries. I hope your parents are getting by fine. Do you help out?" "No, I don't need to. They manage on their own. I do send gifts and stuff sometimes." "Of course you do, Sylvia. Not everyone around the world gets to enjoy high-quality goods. Let me know if they need anything. I can always help out. I know how exciting it is to get nice gifts. Maybe I can send them some of my own." Guys, I was entertaining her bullshit for a while, but it was starting to get to me. Betty, just out of the blue, assumed that I came from a poor family and my parents don't have much money. I guess my simple looks and old car threw her off. We met at a carnival instead of an upscale restaurant, which might also have influenced her opinion, but it was Matt's idea to meet her. He said that she loves carnivals. Even if I didn't look rich, the stuff Betty was saying was downright low. Matt was off to bring us food, so I was stuck dealing with Betty on my own. As soon as Matt was back, Betty kept inappropriate comments and opinions to herself. When we were returning home, I did talk to Matt about these problems. I knew that I had to tell him the first day so that he knew how long it had been going on. I said, "Matt, I don't think I can be close to your mom after this. She is extremely judgmental and I don't think I can look past her behavior." "I'm so sorry she said these things to you, Sylvia. I wish I was around to defend you. Mom has always been like this. There is nothing I can do about it. Can you at least be civil with her? That will do for me." "Yes, I can do that, Matt. I tend to have thick skin, but your mom can be intense. I will try my best, though, I promise." And I did try my best, trust me, guys. I put up with Betty's behavior for a long time. I did everything to make sure not to scream at Betty for being such a snob. It was freaking irritating to hear Betty talk highly of her while assuming that I am a dumb girl from a poor country. After a while, I seriously couldn't stand her anymore. So with a little push from my friends, I decided to distance myself from her. That apparently angered Betty because she thought that I was being a bad daughter-in-law. It was a complete mess and Matt didn't know what to do, so I took matters into my own hands and started to be careful around Betty. I never indulged her or protested when she patronized me. She happily blabbered about my underprivileged upbringing and seemingly bad condition while I remained silent. Things went well for a few years until me and Matt got engaged. We started to plan our wedding, and Betty made a whole show about how important it is for me to hold a grand wedding for the sake of her reputation. I rolled my eyes at that. She didn't contribute a cent to the wedding, but complained about how cheap we were being with our choices. Instead of helping out, she actually pestered Matt to buy her a new car so that he couldn't spend as much on the wedding. Yes, she wanted Matt's money all to herself. The worst happened when a cousin told me and Matt how Betty planned to humiliate me at our wedding by gifting me her used car because I couldn't even dream of ever owning something that expensive. Matt refused to believe that his mom could be so cruel, but I knew that it sounded like something Betty would do, so I made a plan. I called up my parents and said, "Mom, Dad, my mother-in-law wants to humiliate me at my wedding by gifting me a used car. She is convinced that I am a good-for-nothing woman who can never buy good things in life. And she wants my guests to know that as well." "She sounds like a nightmare, Sylvia. Why does she think that you are destitute? Did you say something of that sort?" "No, I simply told them that you guys live in a different country and I came here for studies. That made her think that we were poor and belonged to a third world country. This woman is nasty, Dad." "My God, she is something. I wonder how she ended up raising such a sweet man like Matt. I see no similarities between the two at all. What are you going to do about this situation, Sylvia? Do you want to confront your mother-in-law?" I did think about it. I wanted to confront Betty and just unload on her. She had no right to behave in such a horrible way all these years. Yes, I didn't give her full information about my background, but that was because it is none of her business. Matt knew it all, and that's enough. Betty didn't even care to ask. She simply assumed the worst and ran with it. Her false assumptions made her feel superior to me, and that was good enough for her. I wanted to confront her and shatter her big ego, but I didn't do that. I had better plans. If she decided to try and humiliate me at my wedding, we didn't deserve to be confronted in private. So I said, "Actually, no, Mom and Dad. I don't want to confront her in private. She does not think twice before trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. Why should I care about her feelings and confront her in private?" "Then what do you plan to do? We'll keep you in any way we can. You just need to tell us." "That's right. We will do our best. We don't want you to take unnecessary stress. Planning the wedding is stressful enough." "Thanks, Mom and Dad. This is why you are the best. Matt still has some hope that Betty won't pull her evil plan at our wedding, but I have my doubts. So I made a plan. If Betty really does humiliate me at the wedding, I will give you a signal to go ahead with the plan." I told my parents the plan and they were happy with it. I didn't inform Matt because it actually didn't concern him as much. Plus, he was still deep in the fog to realize what a horrible person my mother-in-law was. So I didn't tell him about the plan. I knew that Betty would not control herself and fall into my trap. If she thinks she can get away with humiliating me, she has another thing coming. On the day of my wedding, everything went perfectly as planned. The day was going great and we were all having a blast. Me and Matt were super happy and excited to hear everyone's speeches at the reception. It was then that Betty decided to make her appearance on the stage. She took the mic and went on and on about how she was happy for her son and how much she struggled to make this day happen. It was boring and had this odd me vibe. But just when I started to get bored, she declared her gift to me in front of everyone. She said, "So I have decided to give you, Sylvia, dear daughter-in-law, my old car as a wedding present. I feel so good to give you something you couldn't even dream of. To be honest, this car has been my baby for over 5 years. It's a damn good car and all. But now that my son has promised to buy me a new car, I thought you should have it and consider it your wedding present from me. I'm sure you will be thrilled to own such a nice car. I think I can say for sure that I gave you the best gift of everything that you have received from your family. It's just to show you how much I appreciate you. I hope this gift can be a reminder of how generous I am when it comes to family. Betty went on and on about how she must have changed my life by giving me a freaking used car. The way she spoke about me and my family was patronizing and downright appalling. I didn't know why she thought that I didn't come from a good household. My parents don't live in the same country as me, so Betty has never met them before the wedding. Because I don't tell people details about my family, Betty automatically assumed I belonged to a poor family from a third world country or something. I could see that the majority of the guests were getting uncomfortable with Betty's speech. As I said, she is an extremely uninformed and horrible woman. Even Matt looked really ashamed of his mother and gave me an apologetic look from time to time. I gave his hand a squeeze to tell him that I had things under control. Betty wouldn't get away with humiliating my parents. I winked at my parents, who also returned my smile to tell me that they knew what to do. It was going to be showtime. As soon as Betty was off the stage after her ridiculous speech, my parents took the stage after her. They said some great words about us that brought tears to our eyes. Next, they said something that wasn't supposed to be broadcast to everyone, but the situation warranted it. They said, "So, we have been wanting to visit this country to meet with our son-in-law and his family for a very long time. Unfortunately, due to our business, it was difficult to make any plans. We are glad this wedding gave us the opportunity to meet everyone. We really love being here and making sure that our daughter is in the right hands. This wedding will be on my mind for a very long time. After all, it's my only daughter's wedding." Now, since we're already discussing wedding gifts on stage, I guess we should reveal our little gift to you guys too. We are not sure what's the norm here, so I didn't know if it would be appropriate to declare our gift in front of everyone. Oh, it's not a problem at all. We would love to know what you're giving your daughter as a present. There is nothing to be shy about. We have gifts according to our own financial situation. I'm sure no one here would mind or judge a gift from loved ones. Betty thought she was being smart by casually hinting to everyone that my parents were ashamed to reveal their puny little gift in front of everyone. She was trying to be a patronizing little witch, and it was pissing me off. But Betty had no idea how embarrassed she was going to be after my parents revealed their gift. I already knew what they were giving me, but I told them not to talk about it at the wedding. I didn't want Betty to feel like my parents were overshadowing her gift, but after I learned and saw Betty's outrageous behavior, I told my parents to tell everyone what they were giving me, and they agreed. By my dear mother-in-law's insistence, of course. They said, "Thank you for the confirmation, Betty. I see that this is a loving and caring community. No one here really judges people at all. It's so nice to see that after such a long time." Yes, now since people here don't mind sharing details on their wedding gifts, we feel comfortable talking about it too. So me and my husband are really excited to disclose our wedding gift to this wonderful couple who got married today. For my sweet daughter and her amazing new husband, we are giving you guys a new mansion in this area. We found out that a great mansion here was up for sale, and we decided to get it for our one and only daughter. Sylvia and Matt, we really hope you like our gift. Come on, dear. We shouldn't just keep them hanging after this. Guys, we also decided to give you a check so that you can remodel the house and add your favorite furniture to it too. You know, we wanted you guys to have a good start to your married life, so it felt right to give you the whole package. I hope you like your gift. As soon as my parents said this, Matt and I expressed our sincere gratitude towards them. Our guests also cheered and applauded their generous gift since no one was expecting it. And everyone knew what mansion they were talking about. Let me just say that it costs about $500,000. And the check was for another $20,000 so that we could get the house furnished as we liked. Matt wasn't expecting that, so he was super happy. However, his mom, Betty, looked extremely embarrassed and was even looking down at her feet. It was glorious to see Betty get a proverbial slap across her face. If you think that the fun ended there, you are wrong. Betty is one of a kind. This woman had the audacity to walk up to us and express her disappointment at my parents' gift. You would think that she finally got beaten down. Well, it turns out she's just utterly shameless. She pulled us aside after the speeches and said, "That was extremely inconsiderate of your parents, Sylvia. I am embarrassed and appalled at their behavior today." "What do you mean, Betty? My parents have been nothing but kind to everyone here, including you. What is the problem?" "You are asking me what my problem is? Well, your parents should have some etiquette and not declare their gift in front of everyone. They intentionally flashed their money and made everyone feel poor." Betty's words brought out a big laugh from within me. Seriously, guys, I couldn't help but laugh at her ridiculous words. Now, she was accusing my parents of flashing their wealth. I said, "I don't know what you're talking about, Betty. You were the one who told them that they can declare their gift in front of everyone. They just did what you did before them. How did they suddenly become inappropriate?" "Well, they knew that their gift would overshadow everyone, and it even made me look embarrassed. This is not done. Your family intentionally humiliated me." "Isn't that what your plan was, Betty?" "I knew and heard what your plan was. I knew that you wanted to embarrass me and my parents by bringing up your gift and hinting that I am not rich enough to afford good things." "Are you accusing me of insulting you today, Sylvia? My God, just because I'm a poor woman who can't give you a good gift, you are intentionally humiliating me. Matt, are you hearing this? Look at how ungrateful your wife is." "What do you want me to say, Mom? Sylvia is right. You did start this shit show first. I heard what you said during your speech. You tried to humiliate my wife and her family, Mom. Don't try to turn the narrative now. You knew what you were doing, weren't you?" Immediately, Betty knew that she had messed up and got caught. Now her own son was throwing questions that she couldn't answer truthfully. She didn't have to, though. Everyone at the wedding knew how inappropriate Betty's speech was, and they now saw Betty for who she was. But Betty still decided to play the victim card. She said, "Matt, how can you say that to your own mother? It's not my fault that Sylvia lied to me and didn't tell me that her parents are rich. I bet she was waiting for this day when she would get to one-up me in front of everyone." "Don't you dare put the blame on my wife, Mom. She never said that her parents were poor. You were the one who assumed it, and we know from a cousin that you planned this speech to humiliate Sylvia today. There is no use lying or putting blame on others." "Okay, fine. I shouldn't have done that. But Matt, what Sylvia's parents did..." At this point, I saw that Matt had enough of Betty's bullshit. I was already exhausted with her, but seeing Matt get mad at his mom was awesome. But what Matt said next surprised both me and Betty. He said, "Stop it, Mom. What you have done today was extremely embarrassing. I should have seen this coming since you kept picking on Sylvia every chance you got. I feel like I failed as a partner to her. But I won't allow this anymore. You can keep your goddamn car. My wife doesn't need your charity, and I am not buying you a new car either." "What? Matt, why are you behaving like this? Why should I be punished? I know I shouldn't have made that speech, but I don't deserve so much hate. I'm your mother, Matt. You should side with me. I don't deserve to lose my new car." "That's all you care about, Mom. Money and material things. I have been an ATM to you for a long time now. You go around showing off your borrowed wealth and make people feel bad about themselves. It's time you live your life according to your financial standards. I am not helping you out anymore. In fact, I think me and my wife would like some space from you. Don't expect much communication from us from now on. We will be going no contact with you." Guys, Matt stunned the hell out of us all. This was the first time I saw him truly stand up for me. I felt proud that I married the right man. I knew that already, but man, that was awesome. He didn't need any prompting at all. Everything just came tumbling out of his mouth. It was glorious, and Betty was shocked to her core. She immediately started to cry while trying to change Matt's mind. Thankfully, we were in a secluded spot where no one could see us. She did all sorts of begging and pleading, but nothing worked. Matt scolded Betty some more before dragging me away to the party. He said, "Sorry for this drama, Sylvia. I should have done this a long time ago. I really don't want to spoil our wedding, but this had to be done." "Are you joking, Matt? That was the best thing you could do today. I never expected this. You don't have to keep your word, but I still appreciate it." "I plan to keep my word, Sylvia. Mom had been nothing but nasty to you. I never did anything substantial to make her stop. Now it's time I take a stand. We will start a new family, and I don't want Mom's negative presence in that." "I love you so much, Matt. Thanks for doing this for us. Trust me, I will remember this." I meant every word. My wedding wasn't spoiled as Betty had planned. Instead, it became one of the best days of my life. I was able to show Betty her place and get her toxic presence removed from my life. I didn't see the day getting any better, but it did, you know. Turns out people took the gift declaration a little too seriously. Our best friends finally revealed that they were funding our honeymoon. We already booked everything and they knew how much we were spending. They actually decided to give us that amount so that we could do something else with it. Betty's own mother ended up showing me the heirloom necklace that she was supposed to give me in private. Betty was getting more and more embarrassed as time passed. She kept crying in a corner, but no one went to ask her what was wrong. Her plan backfired horribly while I had a blast. Want to know what happened next? Well, true to his word, Matt went low contact with his mom. He ignored all her texts and only told her to contact us for emergencies. Betty didn't like it, of course. We also refused her car, which she couldn't give us anyway since Matt wasn't buying her a new one after all. He also stopped sending her money completely. We had an amazing honeymoon and moved into the new mansion just a month after our wedding. Betty wasn't even allowed a tour of the house or given a key. She complained, but again, no one listened to her. My parents actually ended up bettering their relationship with Matt. They already loved him, but seeing his new shiny spine, they were even more thrilled. From the money Matt and I saved by not paying his mom, we take tours to visit my parents when we can. Betty is miserable since she had to downgrade her lifestyle. She doesn't flaunt her money anymore and is desperate to have her son back. But her son is happy having only me around and has expressed his desire to stay that way, even in the future. Hey there, my name's Daphne. I'm a 30-year-old woman who owns and runs a luxurious beach resort in my state. Now, of course, since I'm the owner, I do have a lot more leeway regarding where I can work, and I choose to work from home. Now, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law did not take kindly to that. What followed was months of bullying and getting belittled. But I put them in their place in the best possible way. Let me get started with my story. I grew up in a very business-oriented family. We worked with a variety of industries, but our most profitable business was the hotel and resort industry. I grew up learning about how our business worked. When I turned 16, I began interning at our beachside resort. This resort became my life. I fell in love with it. Greeting clients and managing the accounts became something I looked forward to every day. My parents were beyond happy that I had taken such a keen interest in the family business. So for my 21st birthday, my parents surprised me with something really big. "Sweetie, your dad and I have been discussing something really big for last year." "Yeah, and we think that you've shown us more than enough potential to do it." "What are you guys talking about?" "Here, these are for you." "What is this?" "We're transferring the ownership of the beachside resort to you." "Are you serious?" "Yes, sweetie, we believe that you deserve it." I mean, this one's been working on it since she turned 16. I don't think there's anyone else worthy of owning it. I can't believe it. Oh my God. I promise I won't let you regret this decision. Oh, we know you won't. You love that place way too much to ever let it go down in flames. I cannot even begin to describe how happy I was when I held the transfer paper on that birthday. Needless to say, I poured my heart and soul into the business. In about a year, business was booming. I had made so much income that I was pretty much settled for life. Of course, that was only possible because of my parents, but I was still really proud of myself. I happened to meet my husband, Brett, through a dating app. It had been about 5 years since I got ownership of the resort. I was thriving financially, but my romantic life was practically tragic. The loneliness began to eat away at me, which was why I signed up for the dating app. Anyway, we ended up matching and then planning on a date. Let me tell you, Brett's profile did not do him any justice because in person, he was 10 times more handsome. He was very charming and chivalrous as well. Obviously, we liked each other, so we went on many more dates. If there was one thing that my parents ingrained into me since a young age, it was to be wary of people. Only because when it came to money, people were never above trying to use you. For the longest time, I tried to dismiss what my parents were saying, but life taught me otherwise. So, even with Brett, I was cautious. We dated for about 4 years before I told him about my wealth. Brett was pretty indifferent towards it, which was what made me even more sure that he was going to be the one for me. He told me over and over again that my wealth wasn't something that was attractive to him, but it was who I was. Since I kept my wealth a secret from him for so long, I asked him to never let anyone else find out about it either, and he promised me he would. We got married with a pretty big ceremony. To be fair, most of the guests were far from my side, but regardless, Brett and I had the time of our lives. By the time we had gotten married, I had met Brett's mom, Kim, and his sister, Bree, a handful of times. They seemed pretty decent and not really problematic. They seemed a little awkward, and sometimes I would catch them speaking to each other in hushed whispers while pointing at me and laughing. I ignored it all because it didn't bother me. As long as they weren't actively ruining my relationship with Brett or my life, they could say and do whatever they wanted. Brett was peeved by their behavior, so he was more than understanding when I told him I would keep my distance from them. About 2 weeks after we got married, Brett asked me if his mom and sister could stay with us for a while. So my mom and sister called me today to ask if they could stay over at our place for a while. Oh? Why? Turns out they were a couple of months behind rent and are getting evicted. Oh, no, that's horrible. Of course they can stay with us. But how long would they stay for? Mom said about 4 to 5 months. They need to work and save up for a new place. That's doable. But they will need to pick their load up around the house. If they live here, they have to contribute to chores and other things. Yes, of course. I'll make sure it happens. That decision turned out to be a horrible one. For some reason, Kim and Bree were under the impression that Brett owned our house. I did, by the way, not that that was an issue. I just had a lot more income than he did. Brett didn't say anything either because saying something would mean revealing my wealth. And who knew how much Kim and Bree would exploit me after that? They took one look at our place and assumed Brett was earning more money and decided to constantly belittle me. They never did their chores and instead left messes everywhere. No matter how many times Brett asked them to clean up after themselves, they never bothered because we're family. What's the big deal? Because I owned the resort, I had the free will to decide where I wanted to work from, so obviously I chose to work from home. For some reason, Kim didn't believe in working from home, and Bree was just plain disrespectful. Both of them would constantly disrupt me while I was in the middle of sorting through important things. If I had a meeting to attend, they would purposely have me run errands for them right before. If I tried to put up a fight, they would use the excuse of not having money or transportation to do it. What made it even worse was that neither of them were employed, nor were they making any actual efforts to find a job. They happily lived at our place, eating our food, using our utilities. I wouldn't have minded it if they had at least taken responsibility for their messes. I was tired of Kim and Bree looking down on me. I could stand it for a while, but I mean, come on, I live with them and I have to hear their stupid comparisons all day long. All they see is that I'm a stay-at-home wife who sits on her computer and phone all day. They think their son is the one who works really hard and brings home the money. I do not appreciate my husband, but even he knows what the truth is. Brett was just as tired of them as I was. He hated how they made him feel inadequate, even though they weren't doing it intentionally. Most of all, he hated how they didn't value me enough and thought it was okay to just walk all over me that day. It all came to a head one day when I invited some of my friends over for brunch. I told Kim and Bree about my plans and politely asked them to stay away from the common areas for an hour or two because my friends would be over. And then after that, we would all be heading out. They had happily agreed to it. I thought it was weird that they agreed to it so readily, but I decided to be grateful for the lack of fight and just accept it. Well, I found it weird for good reason. It took half an hour of my friends being in the house for Kim and Bree to walk in and introduce themselves. At this point, I'm annoyed. But then it got worse. They started talking about how I was a spoiled brat who only knew how to live off of other people's money. My friends looked wildly uncomfortable, but since they were my close friends, they knew about the details of my relationship with my mother and sister-in-law. My friends sat in an uncomfortable and awkward silence while I was just fuming, listening to Kim and Bree laugh at my expense. I knew that if I gave them a reaction, they would eat it up, so I just got up and grabbed my things. I asked my friends if they wanted to head out, and everyone agreed in a heartbeat. We were out of the door so fast you would have thought the house was burning down, which at that moment, I really wished it did happen. After I came back, I went straight to my room. I didn't think I would have been able to see Kim or Bree until I had calmed down. I was still seething at what they had done. They were beyond disrespectful and I was done with them. I wanted them to see just whose money they were living on. I waited until Brett came home to discuss my plans with him. How's work? It was okay, pretty tired. How was your day? Did Mom do something? Oh yeah. She did kind of cross the line though. Oh no, what did she do? Well, your mom and Bree agreed to remain in their rooms until my friends and I left, but surprise, surprise, they came downstairs. They then began to insult me and make fun of me. Your mom called me a spoiled brat. What the hell is wrong with them? I'm going to go and have a word with them. No, hold on. I have another plan in mind. I just wanted to know if it would be okay with you. I'm intrigued. Go on. How about we take them on a short little vacation to the beachside and we could stay at my resort? Oh my God, that's genius. That will put them in their place for sure. Right. Okay, but this is where my plan may get a little more evil. I think I'll be on board anyway. Go on. What if I don't allow them to stay in there? Like, bring them out all the way there and just leave them. We can enjoy ourselves. We can come back and wait till they figure their way back home. Let's do it. They deserve it. Do you want to kick them out too? Honestly, yes. Great. We can do that too. I'm tired of them freeloading off of us. We'll get the eviction notice written up first and then go on our vacation. We can give it to them when we leave them stranded. Why was I even worried about whether you would approve of my plan? We decided to plan the vacation for next week because Brett would have been able to get off then. In that week, I ran by my lawyer and asked him to help me notarize my eviction notice. I was so excited to give it to Kim and Bree. I was finally going to be able to show them the consequences of their actions. Once I had my eviction notice and once Brett got his leave approved, we sat down and figured out our itinerary. We figured that making the vacation look extremely authentic would only make the revenge sweeter. We wanted Brett's mom and sister to feel absolutely torn. At the same time, we knew that this vacation was going to be a starting point for us. We were finally going to be able to live our lives the way we wanted to. I had called my brother to come over and change the locks on my door. I also asked him to bring some of his friends who I would obviously pay over and pack up all of Kim and Bree's stuff from their rooms. I would not allow Kim and Bree back into my life, and they would know it. It would take us about half a day to drive over to the beachside, and in all that time, I would let them say and do whatever they wanted. After all, I would be the one who had the last laugh. When we had everything ready, we decided to tell Kim and Bree. So, Daphne and I were thinking of going on vacation. Oh, to where? Just to the beachside. We were wondering if you guys wanted to join. Whoa, who are you to ask when it's my son's money you're spending? Mom, that's enough. The question was a simple yes or no one. Don't need to make a big fuss about it. Mom was right, Brett. You should be the one asking since you're the one spending the money. If you guys are going to keep this up, I'm going to take it as a no. Forgive us for thinking of you, but we would be glad to join you guys on this vacation. Lord knows we need it after being cooped up in this house with Daphne. If you're going to be this way, I don't think I'd be comfortable with you coming along. Oh, please don't even try to have a say in this. My son has asked us to come along, so we will go. You just have to deal with it. I was irritated. I could see that Brett was too. The amount of entitlement those two carried around with them was actually astonishing. The only thing that allowed me to keep cool was the plan. I knew I'd have to hear a lot of insults and taunts, but I was ready for it. So we're set to go for our vacation that weekend. Kim and Bree were yapping our ears off, but every once in a while, Brett and I would shoot each other knowing looks. When we finally reached there, Kim and Bree looked at the resort with their mouths wide open. They began loudly discussing how beautiful the resort looked. They kept pausing Brett because they were proud that he could afford for them to go to such a luxurious resort. Brett kept his head down in embarrassment. Kim and Bree also didn't fail to make me feel inadequate. They kept telling me to be grateful that Brett invited me along because I was very undeserving of everything Brett did for me. I held my head up high as I walked through the doors into the resort. Kim and Bree walked behind me, taunting me all along, while Brett waited with the bellhop to unload our things. As soon as I got to the receptionist greeted me by referring to me as boss. Boss? Excuse me, but who are you referring to as boss? Oh, I was referring to Miss Daphne. You clearly can't tell the rich from the poor. If there's anyone you should be referring to as boss, it's us. I'm sorry, but Miss Daphne is quite literally my boss. What? Look, if this is some sick joke, I want to speak to your manager. The highest authority of this establishment just walked in with you, Mom. I don't think there's much my manager can do for you. Both of their faces paled. They tried to argue about it further with the receptionist, but she continued to stand her ground about me being the owner of the resort. I just stood and watched them stutter and fumble their words as the realization of how they had been treating me started to kick in. I guess they started to put two and two together as they realized that all the time I spent on my phone and laptop was not actually lazing about, but me actually working and earning money. When Brett walked in, they immediately went to him and began to yell at him. "How could you lie to us?" "What are you talking about?" "Don't try to act smart. How come you never told us that your wife was the owner of this resort and probably filthy rich?" "Why should I be the one to tell you about other people's business? It was not my place to say anything." "You've embarrassed us. All this time, if we had known, what? You would have treated me nicer? No need to be rude about it. If you needed to know about my social status and earnings for you to treat me like a decent human being, then I don't want either of you to be a part of our lives." "You don't get to decide for my son. Tell her, Brett." "Actually, Mom, she has a point." "Are you seriously taking her side over ours?" "I've told both of you time and again to stop being mean to Daphne, but not once have you listened. You only stopped doing it in front of me. That was beyond disrespectful. I don't want to have anything to do with either of you." "Here is your eviction notice. When you return back, you'll find all of your things packed and out of the house. Don't bother trying to enter the house. I made sure to have all the locks changed. All the best on your journey back." "You're leaving us just like that? You can't do that. We're family." "If family actually meant something to you, you wouldn't have treated me this way." "But we don't have any way to get back home. At least let us stay here." "Well, here's $100. Figure your way back home. Goodbye now." The look of pure shock on Kim and Bree's face was so satisfying. I couldn't believe I was finally going to be able to get rid of them. I finally don't have to constantly look over my shoulder in my own home. My home can finally become my safe space once again. Brett was in the same boat. He felt free too. I knew it because I could see how happy he was. He had a bounce in his step and he was super smiley and laughy. I loved seeing him that way. Our mini vacation went super well. We had the time of our lives, and when it was time to go, we were actually excited to go back home for the first time in a while. It's been about 6 months since all of this happened, and let me tell you, I'm never giving up my peace of mind for family. I mean it in the way that bullies in families are the worst, and I will never help them out again. I'm just grateful my husband was on board with everything and had my back. I don't know much about what happened to Kim and Bree after everything. When we came back, all their stuff was gone, so I knew that they had managed to find a way to get back. Later, Brett had gotten calls from several family members about him abandoning his mother and sister after lying to and manipulating them. Brett obviously did not let his mom and sister's lies live. He provided proof and cleared our names. As far as I know, Kim and Bree have been cast out by the entire family, and none of them want to help them out. I'm glad Brett and I managed to get rid of the biggest source of toxicity in our lives. We are happier and livelier now, and I couldn't have life go any other way. Thanks for listening. Hello, my name's June and I'm 38 years old. My father-in-law, Nick, recently passed away. It was devastating to lose him, but grief was not the only thing that Nick's death brought. It also brought back my cheating ex-husband, Cedric. Let me start from the beginning. Cedric and I met through a dating app. I was a college student who was just looking for some fun because I was tired of being cooped up in my college dorm. Cedric was 4 years older than me and he was a working man. We matched and got to talking. We met up, went on a couple of dates. I wouldn't say that we had an instant connection, but we could easily hang out. On one of these dates, we decided to go to a bar. We ended up drinking a lot, and before I knew it, we were at his place. The next month, I missed a period which had never happened all my life. I was scared for my life because I knew that there was no way that it wasn't pregnancy. I took many tests and all of them came back positive. I told Cedric about it and surprisingly, He was all on board to help me raise the child. In the next few months, Cedric transformed into this caring and very gentle man. It made me fall in love with him, so I asked him to marry me. Cedric said yes without any hesitation. When I informed my parents about my wedding and my being pregnant, they were not happy about either of those things, although they were adamant about meeting Cedric. My family was always overprotective of each other, and so future spouses were scrutinized really hard. When Cedric met my family, none of them liked him. They were nice to him, but I knew it was just a show. My mother pulled me aside after dinner to talk to me. "I'm only saying this because we love and care for you, but we don't think that boy's right for you." "How can you say that after just one meeting?" "There's just this feeling. If it was just one of us that felt that way, I wouldn't be telling you this." "What if you guys feel this way because you don't like that I'm pregnant?" "Of course we don't like that you're pregnant. You're only 20, for God's sake." But we talked about it and we came to the mutual agreement that it's your body and your choice to do what you want. We're not going to interfere with your pregnancy. This man is just not right for you. Look, I'm glad that you guys are being so understanding of the pregnancy, but you have to know that this man is the baby's father and he's been super nice to me. I'm telling you, he will not stay. If you still remain with him, we won't help you when trouble falls. Thank you so much for believing in me. With that, I grabbed Cedric's hand and stormed out of the house. It hurt to think that my parents had so little faith in me. I wanted to uninvite my parents, but Cedric convinced me to let them attend our wedding. In hindsight, I probably should have listened to my mom because she was never wrong about partners. I guess I was just scared to raise a child by myself. Anyway, the wedding went on as planned. It was a wonderful event. Cedric's parents were very caring of me and made sure that I was always comfortable. They were the ones who contributed the most towards the wedding, and they made sure that everything that was to be a part of the wedding included comfort for me. When it came time to give birth, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Everything was going well after. Cedric took on most of the caring while I worked on finishing college. Cedric was an amazing father and he never really complained about anything. He was supportive of my career too. Once I graduated, he was the one who helped me find a job. I made significantly less than him, but at that point, something was better than nothing. Our son was growing into the cutest little child. Cedric and I were beyond overjoyed when we got to witness his first steps and hear his first words. Cedric and I had our struggles, but there was nothing that I thought was deeply wrong. We always communicated with each other about everything, and we worked really well as parents too. I was so glad that I got to spend the rest of my life with him. A good 11 years passed by in the blink of an eye. We were still that picture-perfect family, but then I came home from work one day to see Cedric in bed with another woman. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I didn't even want to look at his face. I just walked out of the house and went to stay with a friend. I arranged for my son to stay with a friend as well until I got things between Cedric and me sorted out. The next day, I filed for divorce. I asked for primary custody and for Cedric to pay child support. When I presented Cedric with the papers the next day, he was not happy. Divorce? Really? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I don't know why you're cheating on me, and frankly, I don't care to know. Just sign it and get out of my life. Ha! You want me to pay child support? Yes, you have a son who needs to be taken care of too. You're asking for a divorce, so you'll have to deal with raising our child by yourself. How can you say that? You can punish me all you like, but why does our son have to suffer? I never wanted him in the first place, but at the same time, I couldn't risk you going to my family if you chose to complain about me not being supportive. I will not pay you anything. You can say what you like, but the court will make you pay child support. See you in court. It hurt. to find out that Cedric never loved me. It hurt like crazy. Who spends a decade with someone out of obligation? If he had told me no all those years ago, I would never have done that. At least I would have had my family's support. But regardless of my pain, I knew I had to keep going. The court hearings were not easy to attend. Cedric kept going on about how I had trapped him in a marriage, but I had managed to have significant proof against what he was saying. The court ordered him to pay child support at the start of every month starting next month. Even though I was still hurting from the divorce, I was glad that my son wouldn't be getting harmed. A week after our divorce, the next month began. So Cedric had to pay me child support, but for some reason, I could never get through to him. Over the next week or so, I tried to get a hold of him many times, but his number was disconnected. There was no way of telling whether he was reading any of my emails, and I was blocked from his social media. I tried to get through to him by creating another account, but even that one got blocked. I tried to reach out to him through another new account, but suddenly I couldn't find his account. He had deleted his entire account. I called Cedric's job, and they told me that he had quit his job 2 weeks ago because he had to move abroad. I was panicking. I contacted my lawyer and asked him what I should do if my husband ran away to another country. He asked me if I knew which country he had moved to because we could still get the child support reinforced. But I had no idea where he had gone. My lawyer told me that I could technically have the government search around, but that would take a lot of time and money, not to mention that I might not even get any results. I had no way of finding out where Cedric was, which meant I had to figure out how to raise my son on what little money I had. I had some savings set aside for a rainy day, and well, that wasn't going to last me very long. I knew my parents wouldn't help me because they had warned me not to be with him. If I asked my friends for help, there was only so long they could help me. The only people I could ask was Cedric's parents. I had a great relationship with them. In fact, after Cedric and I had told them that we were getting divorced, they were more concerned about me than their own son. They were really wealthy, and I knew they were a safe bet. I didn't expect them to give me a crap ton of money every month. I just needed what Cedric was ordered to pay. Even a little less than that would work. Although I didn't want to contact them immediately, I decided to just go on until I couldn't take care of my son and myself. I lasted about 3 months. It was a real struggle to pay all the bills. By the end of the month, I could only feed my son, but I figured things would all be okay. I was actually even beginning to stop entertaining the idea of asking Cedric's parents for help. And then my son got really sick. He had to be hospitalized for a couple of days. The medical bills, even after insurance, were way too much for me to be able to pay off. I remember having a huge breakdown about it. We were barely getting through the month as it was, and to have another huge expense was salt to an open wound. I knew I had to contact Cedric's parents, so I did. "Hey, June, how's everything going? It's been a while since we heard from you." "Yeah, well, I've been struggling a lot." "Oh, no. Is Cedric creating any hassles for you?" He's abroad somewhere. Haven't you heard from him?" "Abroad? What do you mean?" "I thought you knew. He ran away the day we got a divorce to get away from paying child support." "What the hell? I just thought he was being him and not calling us. Plus, I have to admit, we were mad at him for ruining a good relationship, so we didn't call him up either." "Yeah, so I've been struggling." "Oh, God, yeah. You know what? Why don't you guys come over? I'll talk to Nick about all this, and we'll do our best to help you." "Thank you so much. I really don't know how I can repay you." "Nonsense. You've been dealing with all this for months. I wish you had come to us earlier. Besides, we want to take care of our grandbaby too. Bring some clothes over. Stay with us." "Okay, I'll be there in an hour." I was honestly relieved that Felicia was so readily on board with helping me out. I didn't even have to ask her to help me outright. She just said she would. I cried in relief. Once I was done crying, I packed up a small suitcase for my son and me, and we went over to Felicia and Nick's. Felicia greeted us at the door with huge hugs. When we went in, we saw Nick, and he also greeted us with huge hugs. We sat down to have lunch and just had casual conversations. They made sure to ask my son a lot of questions and made him feel involved, which made me feel happy that they were protecting my child from hearing things that he shouldn't have heard. When we were done with lunch, my son went off to play somewhere in the house, and Nick, Felicia, and I talked about how everything had been the past 3 months. They were furious about how Cedric left me. They told me they were disappointed to find out that Cedric had been having an affair, but to find out that he had also abandoned his one duty as a father was infuriating. They were also upset with me for not reaching out earlier, and I admitted it was wrong of me to do that. Nick was adamant about helping me out financially. He wanted to give me way more than Cedric was entitled to give me, but I felt wildly uncomfortable with him giving me that much money. Nick, please, there's no need for that much money. Consider it a reimbursement for the past 3 months. Besides, you're a young woman who's raising a child all on your own. You don't have to make so many sacrifices when your child's grandparents have more than enough to give. I know, but it feels like it's a little too much. Nonsense. Nothing is too much when it comes to you too. And nothing you say will change our minds. We just want one thing from you in return. Yes, of course, anything. You need to be in more contact with us. We need you to promise us that if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you'll come to us. I promise I will. Good. We don't want either of you struggling anymore. Thank you so much. Shh. We love that we can be more involved in our grandbaby's life too. So thank you for coming to us. The next few months were like a breeze. I never realized how much of a difference financial stability made until I had more than enough money. Even when I was married to Cedric, we were in no means financially stable. We still lived paycheck to paycheck, but having more money meant providing my son with many more opportunities. Months turned into years. My son turned into a wonderful person, and he had a very close relationship with his grandparents. We went to see them every weekend and even went on family vacations with them. We were living very well, not only because Nick and Felicia were still supporting us, but because I landed a much better job and my son was also able to start working. About 6 years after Cedric left us, Nick's health began to deteriorate. He had suffered a stroke, but he was fine after he got medical attention. He was put on a strict diet and had a lot of medicines to take. We were all scared that something bad would happen, so we were constantly on guard. Nick was adamant about redoing his will, so I helped him get it done. A couple of months after my son turned 18, Nick suffered a heart attack and passed away before he could get any help. We were devastated. We were told that if we had recognized the symptoms even 2 minutes earlier, he would have been able to live. It was heartbreaking to know that. The funeral happened a week after Nick passed away. We took our time informing everyone in Nick and Felicia's extended family about Nick's passing. Felicia was a mess, so my son and I handled almost everything. We didn't mind doing it because obviously it was the least we could do. The funeral was a very solemn moment. Never had I ever seen so many people gathered in one place. It felt good to know that Nick was loved by so many people, and it was even better to see Felicia crack a smile again after meeting her loved ones. My son and I were pretty much strangers to almost everyone present, but we clung to each other. A week later, we were having a reading of Nick's will at Felicia's place. I don't know how Cedric found out, but he showed up at the front door. I was the one that opened the door, and the sight of him made my stomach drop. I felt a lot of emotions in the moment. Anger, frustration, shock, disbelief. I was too caught up in my emotions to form a single sentence. Cedric barely acknowledged and just pushed past me and entered the house. When I got a hold of myself, I slammed the door shut and quickly walked over to him. I heard Felicia gasp in shock. When I walked into the living room, I saw Cedric standing there looking unbothered while Felicia looked like a ghost. I decided to speak up. "What are you doing here? Last time I checked, they're not your in-laws anymore." "That is none of your business. You were the one who ran away and even cut contact with your parents. It's worse that you're here, not the other way around." "Whatever. I also came back for my inheritance." "Excuse me? You went missing for the past 7 years. You left me to raise our child alone. You never checked in on your parents, and the only reason you came back was for your inheritance? What is wrong with you?" "Who cares about what's wrong with me? I still get my inheritance, and nothing you say will change that. Anyway, Mom, can I take a look at the will?" "What inheritance are you talking about?" "Dad promised me half of all his assets. I just want to see if he did give it to me and when I'll get it." I took a look at it, and there was absolutely nothing in it for you, although Nick did leave you a letter. Hearing that all his dad left him was a letter made Cedric angry. I saw his expression change from nonchalance to anger, and I felt giddy with happiness. I knew what was written in that letter because I was the one who helped Nick write it. The letter essentially told Cedric that Nick was very disappointed and angry with him. He told Cedric that he had raised him to be a better person and not someone who cheated on their spouse or ran away from major responsibilities. Nick went on to explain that since Cedric left me and my son alone to fend for ourselves, he was the one who stepped up and took care of us, with Cedric's portion of his inheritance. Nick said that after his grandson was born, he changed his will to divide his assets into 3 parts between Cedric, Felicia, and my son. But because Cedric left, he decided to spend Cedric's portion on my son and me, and whatever was left, he was donating it to a non-profit organization that worked towards helping single mothers, while my son and Felicia would get their portion of the inheritance. I watched Cedric's face get redder and redder with anger. It honestly made me want to laugh out loud. I couldn't believe he actually thought he would get an inheritance from his father. Nick was a good man who had strict morals. He didn't care who you were to him. If you did something wrong, he would put you in your place, and he had put Cedric in his place in the most perfect way. It was also kind of sad to know that Nick knew somewhere in his heart that Cedric would only come back for the inheritance. When I thought back on how much Nick had insisted on getting his will changed, it was sad to understand that it was only because he knew Cedric that well. I was pulled out of my thoughts by Cedric walking towards me really fast. He jabbed a finger at my chest. "You! What did you say to him?" "First of all, get your finger off of me. Second of all, I didn't say anything to Nick. You read the letter. I don't know what it says." "It says your son got the inheritance, both my portion and his own. What did you do?" "I didn't do anything. You're responsible for your own actions. You chose to leave, and your father chose to exclude you from his will. I had no part in any of these decisions." "You think you're so coy by coolly telling me you had no part in anything? But I will contest Dad's will. I will get what's rightfully mine." "Go right ahead. I have full proof that you violated your court orders by fleeing the country, and I have proof of Nick pulling money from your portion of the inheritance to pay your child support. Try to fight me and you might get fined or worse, thrown in jail." "Why, you... Shut it, Cedric. If you're done, I'm going to nicely ask you to leave." "You stole everything from me." "No, you did that to yourself. Leave, or I will get the police involved. It's hard enough for us to deal with losing Nick, and you treating him like he was just some ATM to you is not helping at all. Get out." Cedric left after that, but not before yelling a bunch of profanities at us. Felicia looked like she was ready to go outside and fight Cedric. but I managed to calm her down. I was glad that my son hadn't come along today because I didn't think he'd have dealt with Cedric so lightly. I don't really know what happened to Cedric after that. I don't care to know either. The inheritance that Nick had left for my son was a pretty huge amount, and it would very easily get him through college without him having to take out any loans. I was grateful for Nick's insight. Once my son leaves for college, Felicia and I plan to go on a small vacation, just the two of us, because we're both women who went through a lot, and we think we deserve a moment of happiness. Life is beginning to look up. When I caught Cedric cheating, I never thought this was the route my life would take, but here I am. Remember that you can always find a ton of loopholes, but the consequences will come to find you, even if it takes years. Be good and do good to those around you, and you'll see how nice life can be.